Baruchim Abayim, welcome everyone to a special edition of All Parsha on Parshas Re'eh, the Baal Haturim on Parshas Re'eh. If you're tuning into this one, I believe you're in for a treat, B'siyanta D'Shmaya. There are gold mines in the Baal Haturim in this week's Parsha. Let us begin with the opening pasuk. Re'eh Anoichi. Says Baal Haturim, firstly, Re'eh, see, Anoichi. Look at the Aseres Hadibros, which begins with the word Anoichi, and realize that all 613 mitzvahs are nichlal in the Aseres Hadibros. See and look at them carefully to fulfill all of them. Now the Baal Haturim has an amazing observation, because God says, see that I have placed before you today blessing and curse. When it comes to the bracha, es ha-bracha. When it comes to the klala, v'ha-klala. Says the Baal Haturim, the word es comes to include es ba l'rabbis. Then when it comes to goodness, it says es, a lashon of riboy, because nothing that God promised in terms of the goodness that will happen will fall by the wayside. But when it comes to the klala, there's not so much. There's not as much klala in this world as there is bracha. Bracha there is in abundance. There is a great amount. And this is an important principle, an important yesod, an important hashkafa, always to realize that the goodness in this world far outweighs whatever challenges and whatever difficulties there are. The Rambam writes in the Mar Nevuchim that most of what we receive from Hashem is enjoyment and pleasure. Even someone who is ill in their old age, they should realize the majority of their life was good for them. And even now, when they're ill, most of the things in their life are l'toiva and are good, and most of their body are functioning, and most of the limbs and phenomenon are working well. The Rambam says, "Mei olam laira'isi mishayeloi roiv tzarais," and therefore it is incumbent upon us always to see and to recognize and to realize that the majority of what we receive from HaKadosh Baruch Hu is l'toiva. And this is indicated in, when it comes to the bracha, it's es, there's an abundance, there's a lot, there's a tremendous amount. When it comes to the klala, it exists, but it's only klala. And therefore, we have 3 weeks of punishment, but we have 7 weeks of consolation. Amazingly, the Sefer HaToida of Rabbi Glatstein writes that if you add up all the psukim of the Shiva Dinachemta, of the 7 weeks of consolation, there are 147 psukim. 144 psukim in all the 7 weeks of consolation. Meya, Arba'an ve'arba'a. However, if you count up all the psukim of the Teichacha, Bechukaisai, in Kisavai, in Nitzavim, in Hazinu, there are 143 psukim of Teichacha. Because there's always more good in this world than there is bad. There are more psukim, one more pasuk of Nechama than there is of Teichacha. Es ha-bracha, es is ba l'rabbis. Now we move on to literally one of the most astounding comments in all of the Bali, all the comments of the Baal Haturim. Perak Yud Gimel, pasuk Beis, ki yakum bekirbecha navi. If there should arise in your midst a prophet, oy choylem chalaim, or one who dreams, v'nasan elecha oisay my face, and he gives you a sign or a wonder. Now, in the ancient editions of the Baal Haturim, it says, Ki yakum bekirbecha navi, amongst you a prophet, is gematria zu ha'isha. This is the woman. Huh? Amongst you a prophet is gematria zu ha'isha. Well, firstly, the gematria cannot be more off. It's off by 63. Bekirbecha is 324. Navi is 63. And Zu Ha'isha is 324. So Bekirbecha Navi is 387. Zu Ha'isha is 324. So it's 63 off. What's going on here? What does the Baal Haturim even mean? That Bekirbecha Navi is Gematria 387, is the same Gematria as Zu Ha'isha, that's 324. So in the newer editions of the Baal Haturim, it says Bekirbecha, the word Bekirbecha, which is Gematria 324, is Zu Ha'isha. this is the woman. Presumably, what that refers to is the comments of the Sifri, Bikirbacha l'rabois ha'isha, that this is the subject of a false prophet who gives a sign or a wonder, and he tries to persuade you to leave God and to stray after other gods. And the Sifri says, not only a male false prophet do you not listen to and you have to kill, but l'rabois ha'isha, this whole parsha refers and is speaking not only about the male false prophet, but the female false prophet as well. Bikirbacha navi is the word bikirbacha by itself, which is 324, is gematria zu ha'isha. The question is, what does the Baal HaTurim mean? This is the woman. Which woman? It sounds like the Baal HaTurim is referring to a specific woman. It's more than the Sifri is saying. The Sifri says, l'rabois es ha'isha, to include a woman. In other words, this Parsha refers to a female prophet as well. But the words of the Baal HaTurim, zu ha'isha, this is the woman. What's the woman? So the new Baal HaTurim say, bikirbacha alone is zu ha'isha. The old Baal HaTurim say Bikirbacha Navi is Gematria Zu Ha'isha, but there the Gematria is off by 63. So Rabbi Akiva Eger in the Sefer Drusha V'Chidusha Rabbi Akiva Eger brings an astounding explanation for the meaning of this Baal HaTurim. Says Rabbi Akiva Eger, the Christian world was always searching in vain for references in the Torah to their so-called God and false prophet and his mother. So the Ribbon Shalom made sure not only there should be a remez to him, but there should be a remez to his fallacy and his emptiness, and that we're not allowed to listen to him and that we have to put him to death in the parsha of a false prophet. Because the original Baal HaTurims read as follows: Ki yakum b'kirbecha navi. Bikirbacha Navi is gematria, so we said that's off. Bikirbacha Navi is 387. Zu ha'isha is 324. No, originally it said Zu ha'isha ubna. This is the woman and her son. This refers to Yeshu Hanoitzri and the mother. Originally, the Baal HaTurim read, you know who the false prophet, the dreamer is, that will give you a sign that you're not to listen to, that you should put to death? That is Zu ha'isha ubna. That is the woman and her son, referring to Yeshu Hanoitzri. But as understood, the censors had to tamper with this one. So what they did was, they made it Bikirbacha Navi is Gematria Zu ha'isha, even though it's off by 63, and then the later printers tried to figure it out, and they said, okay, take out the word Navi, and the word Bikirbacha is Gematria Zu ha'isha. But the original and real reading of the Baal HaTurim reads, Bikirbacha Navi 387, Bigamatria, Zu ha'isha ubna. The false prophet who you can't listen to and must be put to death, that is Zu ha'isha, the woman and her son. We know who that refers to. That is the false god of Christianity. And now we come to an amazing comment of the Baal HaTurim. Parak Yadalet, Pasuk Aleph, my favorite pasuk, if we could say such a thing. Banim atem l'Hashem Elokeichem. You are the children of Hashem your God. And we know famously there's a machlokes between Rav Meir and Rabbi Yehuda as to what our relationship is with the Rebbeinu Shalom. Rav Meir is of the opinion, ben kach uben kach nikra'im banim, that however we act, whatever we do, we are always considered the children of Hashem. In fact, the Baal HaTurim in the beginning of Devarim, Parak Aleph, Pasuk Hey, finds a remez to this shita of Rabbi Meir. My friend Rabbi Aaron Subar pointed out this Baal HaTurim to me in Parak Aleph Pasuk Hey, that the Baal HaTurim notes that the word Ha'il appears 3 times in Tanakh. Be'ever hayardein bi'aretz mayav Ha'il Moshe. 3 times the word Ha'il appears. One is Ha'il Moshe. Moshe explained the Torah. One is Ki Ha'il Hashem Lasis Eschem Leilam. God wanted the Jewish people as His nation. And Ha'il Halach Acharei Tzav. Because since you went after false gods. Says the Baal Haturim, whether we do the will of Hashem and we're Mekayim the Torah, Hayel Moshe Be'eretz HaTorah Zois, whether we're Oved Avodah Zarah, Hayel Halach Achrei Atzav. Either way, Hayel Hashem Lasis Eschem Leil, we are always His people, indicating the Shita of Rav Meir, Ben Kach Ben Kach Nikram Banim. But here, in Parshas Re'eh, the Baal Haturim discovers a remez to the Shita of none other than Rabbi Yehuda. Says the Baal Haturim, right before the pasuk Banim Atem L'Hashem Elokeichem is the pasuk Ki Tishma B'Kol Hashem Elokecha, if you will, because you will listen to the voice of Hashem your God. Lishmar es kol mitzvaysav, to keep all His mitzvahs, Asher Anochi Mitzavcha Hayom, that I command you today, La'asos Hayashar, to do that which is just, Be'enei Hashem Elokecha. Says the Baal Haturim, there's a juxtaposition, to do that which is just in the eyes of Hashem. You are children to Hashem. When are we children to Hashem? When we do that which is just in the eyes of Hashem. This is the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda, and it's alluded to in these psukim, juxtaposed to you are children to Hashem, is to do that which is just, indicating we are only Hashem's children when we're La'asos Hayashar Be'enei Hashem Elokecha. So I wondered, what will Rav Meir do with this juxtaposition in this Baal Haturim? The Torah seems to be clearly alluding to this concept, that we are only Hashem's children when we do that which is just in the eyes of Hashem. So I saw an amazing approach in the Sefer Merkeves HaMishnah on the Sifri. The Merkeves HaMishnah on the Sifri says as follows. There's another machlokes Rav Meir and Rabbi Yehuda. If when you make a Tanai, when you make a stipulation, does the stipulation have to be a Tanai kafel, a doubled stipulation? Do you need to say, if you do X, I'll do Y, and if you don't do X, I won't do Y? Or is it enough to say, if you do X, I'll do Y? Rabbi Yehuda says you could just make one stipulation. You could say, if you do X, I'll do Y. Rav Meir says the stipulation is not binding, but the deal is binding. You have to give the other person what you promised, regardless of whether he fulfills any Tanai, because a Tanai has to be, if you do X, I'll do Y, and if you don't do X, I won't do Y. But if you don't say, if you don't do X, I won't do Y, you have to do X regardless of whether that person does Y. Therefore, Rav Yehuda reads this pasuk in accordance with his shita. Hashem says, you are my children if you do what is right in my eyes. Rabbi Yehuda says, okay, God made one stipulation and it's binding. We are His children, provided that we do what is just in His eyes. Rabbi Meir says, come on. God says we're His children, but that condition that He made, only if we do what is just in His eyes, that's not binding. Otherwise He should have said, you're my children if you do what is just, and you're not my children if you don't do what's just. So since Hashem did not make a Tanai kafel, the Maisa is Kayam, we are His children, and it's not binding on us to do what is just in His eyes. So Rav Meir would simply read the pasuk, despite the fact that God says, you're only my children if you do what is just. No, we're His children regardless, ben kach uben kach nikraim banim. And as Parshas Re'eh is the parsha that we read it in the beginning of Chodesh Elul, and we're learning this concept that we are Hashem's children, it is important to recognize that being Hashem's child, this idea is the engine of how tshuva works. Because many Sfarim teach us, based on the Medrash Tanchuma, that only Jews are able to do tshuva. Because the mechanism of tshuva is Av shemachal al kvoidai, kvoidai machal. A father who overlooks his insult, his honor is forgiven. Hashem accepts our tshuva because we are His children, and therefore it is vital to read this pasuk in the beginning of Chodesh Elul so that we realize and recognize the mechanism and the engine of tshuva. May we take advantage of this great month to be choizer, b'shuva shalema, lefanecha, wishing everyone a wonderful Shabbos Mevarchim, Chodesh Elul, haba aleinu l'taiva.